that has occupied conversations within the Roads Committee of the Senate and the Lands Committee as well. Mr. Speaker, the truth on the ground is that the National Land Commission and the Kenya National Highways Authority have been involved in a ping pong where National Land Commission says they are ready to compensate sections of the road where they have given award letters, but then blame the Kenya National Highways Authority for failure to submit funds for compensation. Mr. Speaker, it will be noted that the responsibility of the National Land Commission on compensation is twofold. One, it is to value land, and after valuing land, issue award letters to persons affected by the project. And after they have issued those awards, then they are supposed to calculate the total sum required for compensation of the persons affected by the project and submit that sum to the agency of government involved in the construction of the road. And this time round, Kenya. Then Kenya is supposed to give funds to NLC for submission to affected persons. Mr. Speaker, I am glad that this petition has come before the Senate at such a time as this, because a huge section of that road, Mr. Speaker, has already been done, complete with tarmac. And yet, in sections of that road which has already been tarmacked, the NLC has not even issued award letters to persons affected by the project. And yet, Mr. Speaker, the Constitution is very clear, Article 40, that yes, government has a right, a constitutional right, to acquire private land for public use, but when that happens, then the Constitution and the law requires that the government should compensate landowners promptly, in full, and according to market rates for the property. So,
on behalf of the rest of us.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity to join you in welcoming the students from Kapkei Secondary School in Uasin Gishu County. Dare I say that is a school I started when I was in the 10th Parliament from scratch. I'm very proud of these students. They have performed very well, and I want to wish them well, even as they visit this Parliament. They should spend their time in Nairobi to learn exactly the ways that things happen here, learn from the leaders that are already here. And the best thing that you can learn is that hard work has brought most of us to where we are. So I want to tell these students to go and work hard and make a difference in their lives and in the lives of their families, because it only takes hard work. There is nothing else. I want to also welcome the students from Stare boys and wish them well. Stare is a school that is well known, and we know the kind of products that they are produced, so we don't doubt the fact that also hard work will take you far, and we can only tell you the sky is the limit. There are two groups. I say welcome, enjoy your stay here, learn from your leaders, and go home safe. God bless. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator for Nairobi, Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to welcome them as well as comment on the petition, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Thank you. First of all, I join you in welcoming the students from Uasin Gishu County, as well as those who are here on the internship program from Stare Boys Center. I just want to encourage them and tell them that the world belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams, that whatever they put their mind into, if they work hard, the Kenya of today is one where we are striving to make sure there's equality of opportunities for everybody, no matter where you're from, no matter what your tribe is, no matter what your surname is. So encourage them to work hard. Mr. Speaker, also, I just want to note that it's been very encouraging to see the students coming from Sare for this internship program. I hope Parliament is opening this up to many more schools from across the country so that they can come alongside those from Sare. We want to see some from Kitui, some from Mombasa, and the rest of the country, so that they can interact with leadership and also with the systems of this arm of government. Mr. Speaker, on this petition, we've seen very many similar petitions about compensation. And I think the more we go on without asking the critical questions, the more we'll have similar petitions.
Senator Mwaura, you're on a point of order?
I knew
Okay.
he could
All
not
right.
have been.
All
on a
right,
point of
proceed,
order.
Senator Sakaja.
Mr. Speaker, Chapter 5 of our Constitution is very clear. The principles of land policy, Mr. Speaker, include security of land rights. Cap 295 of land acquisition, Mr. Speaker, the Land Acquisition Act is also extremely clear on the process through which land is acquired, and especially when it relates to a project. The question that the committee must ask is, how is it that, because the funds are provided for in the project funds for compensation, how is it that a project has reached, in this case, 50%, yet the people have not been compensated? I've had similar issues I've brought to this house on Mountain View Road, Rudimitu, about the expansion of the highway.
What is it, Senator Pogisho?
Speaker, I don't know if you know why the chairman for finance is up on his feet at the same time as the member from Nairobi.
Sorry,
I just couldn't see. I couldn't see the
can I hear that again, Senator Pogisho?
Speaker, I thought you had noticed that the chairman for finance was standing up at the same time as a member for the senator for Nairobi, and I couldn't even see the chair from here.
Senator Mohamud. Yeah? Can you get back to order? Right away. Proceed, Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Senator Pogisho should have invoked our standing orders that talks about gangways and alleyways, and senators
Yes.
being... Anyway, Mr. Speaker, the point I was making was this. This matter has been brought, I brought it on the issues of Wayaki Way affecting traders and business people along the project there. We've seen the same in Westlands, we've seen the same on Outer Ring Road, we've seen the same in so many places, that a project whose budget has been passed and appropriated, and within that budget it includes money for compensation, has gone 20, 50% in terms of completion, yet the people there are still waiting for compensation. Let us, Mr. Speaker, make sure that this ministry doesn't just see brick and mortar in terms of projects, but sees the lives being affected when you displace people who are rightfully within their own land. So I'd ask, Mr. Speaker, so that it is not recurrent, so that it doesn't keep coming up, that the committee asks the right questions, and I pray that the prayers of the petitioners from Kitui are actually answered. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 minute each for Senator Kabaka first. Just say what has not been said.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I won't repeat what has been said by the other senators, but what I need to add is that the law is clear with regard to compensation on the compulsory acquisition, and it must be followed to the hilt. Article 40, very clear, subsection 3B, on what the government or the state is supposed to do with regard to compensating the affected citizen, that and therefore no project should be undertaken before the full compensation has been done. And indeed, what we are envisaged around in this state is impunity, where a project will start and it's like the government would want parties to go to court, and the process in court takes, it's a bit lengthy. And somehow, somewhere, compensations becomes intricate. And even without wasting time, even compensation in terms of injuries, Attorney General is known, again, not even to compensate as per the degree or judgments which had been passed by the court. And therefore, we are saying it's a high time we revisit our moral turpitude in this state so that the implementers of the law would comply with the dictates of the law.
Thank you.
I support. Thank you.
Senator Maura, quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me to quickly also congratulate the students who are with us and also the ones who are on internship, and to really congratulate Parliament, and in this case the Senate, for this noble initiative, because this is the only way we are going to impart, the knowledge for institutional memory for the future leaders, because they are the ones who are going to take over from us, and their dreams are valid. Mr. Speaker, we just passed the land index law, and if it was a question of how much then people are supposed to be compensated, there was no parameter to gauge, because it is true also, people take advantage of such projects to demand for compensation when they do not actually deserve. I remember a case I had in the last parliament with the people in Lamu, from Kililana, Mashundwani, and such people, and they were eventually compensated. But even then, you could still see there were people who were not deserving, who were trying to get into the lists. I think we must look at projects in its totality with regards to such costs, and they should be settled first so that also you get the goodwill and support of the community going forward. So really, Mr. Speaker, I support.
One minute, Senator Musurove.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity, but kindly allow me to join
Order,
you.
Senator Kabaka. I hope you are not leaving the chamber. We have a division of revenue, which is the most important legislation. We must deal with it today. Proceed, Senator Musurove.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Kindly allow me to join you in welcoming the students from Sarai Boys into the house, and the students from Uasin Gishu. And this is a very good practice for schools to bring students in the house so that they can pick a leaf from us. When it comes to issues of leadership, when they see what is happening in the house, it becomes a practical way of imparting leadership to the learners. And back to the petition, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I commend the petitioners and for coming up with this petition. And Mr. Speaker, quite a number of petitions have come to the floor of this house concerning government taking land, of course for a noble cause, but...
Order. Senator Sakaja, you are the one citing the standing orders on gangways and walkways. And you are actually standing on the gangways and walkways.
Mr. Speaker, it was a very important consultation
Order.
on division of revenue.
Order. On division of revenue. From the gangways. Very well, consulting Lawton senators, and kindly whips, party leaders, get the senators to the chamber. The country is watching, and we have an important legislation to deal with this afternoon. Senator Musurove, summarize. I think more or less you had finished.
No, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I not even completed a sentence. There were so many interruptions.
Okay, 2 sentences then.
Yes. So I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that these petitioners come up with a legit petition. There are many times when petitions come to this house concerning issues of government having taken land from people, but they're not compensated. Of course, the government takes maybe with a good cause, but they need to also consider those people whose land has been taken because they're mentally affected, they have children, they have responsibilities and all that. And there's also need to even make a follow-up to find out where have these people gone after their land has been taken. Some of them could be so stressed wherever they are. So there's need, Mr. Speaker, for this petition to be taken with speed. And it is unfortunate that the project is 50% complete and yet nothing has been done. So, Mr. Speaker, I actually request that the committee that is going to deal with this matter should actually work with speed and ensure that justice is not delayed and compensation is done, and done also according to the market rate, current market rate of the land. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Order, senators. Order, senators, consulting Lawtons. Senators, this petition is in the same manner to be treated by the committee, which has up to 60 days within which to respond to the petitioner by way of a report, and that report also ought to be tabled in the tabled in the Senate. I also wanted to remark that this matter being a matter concerning a road involving eastern region, where the Senate will be sitting for 1 week after the recess. The committee is urged to ensure that perhaps this matter is treated, while we are there, subject to the directions, of course, of the SBC. This could be a matter which, for instance, could be treated from Kitui, so that at least we literally work from the ground, so to speak. And therefore, the relevant committee is the Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources. So ordered. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Order, just to remind members again not to leave, so that we transact this important business that is oncoming. So, do we have papers? I can see reports by the chairperson, Committee on Delegated Legislation. None. It's not present. Next, chairperson, Committee on Health.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Wednesday, 7th of August, 2019. The report of the Standing Committee on Health on the fact-finding tour of Kitui, Machakos, and Kajiado counties. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next order. Meanwhile, senators, please don't leave the chamber. Do not leave the chamber, and those who can get those who are away outside the chamber, cause them to come. As soon as we have the requisite numbers, whips approach the chair so that we can go straight to order number 8. Next order. Order. Senator Mahmood. Senator Mahmood wants to lay a paper.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to lay on the table of the Senate today report of the Standing Committee on Finance and the Budget on the Division of Revenue Bill number 2, Bill National Assembly Bills number 59 of 2019.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Notices of motion. Senator Architect Sylvia Kasanga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to give notice of motion for formation of community forest associations to aid in management of forest resources within counties. Aware that the country is experiencing deforestation, destruction of forests that has resulted in a drop of area of forests to 6.2% of land area, further aware that natural and forest resources improves the environment and quality of life by preventing floods, droughts, erosion, sedimentation, and increase water supply needed to generate more power, expand farm productivity, and meet ever-increasing demand for domestic consumption of our exploding population, noting that Article 69 of the Constitution, Section 5, 6, and 21 of the Forest Conservation and Management Act, FCMA 2016, mandates national and county governments with the responsibility of protecting, collaborating, maintaining, utilizing, and attaining tree cover of at least 10% of the land area, appreciating that there is need to achieve a holistic ecosystem approach to the forest resource management so as to prevent irreversible consequences of human activities on the environment, recognizing that it is time to make an urgent call upon our citizenry to actively participate in protection of forest and plant trees. Now, therefore, the Senate urges the national and county governments to ensure that all citizens, per Article 69(2) of the Constitution, Sections 48 to 52 of the Forest Conservation and Management Act, be encouraged to the Ministry of Environment and Forestry and the counterpart county departments to contribute in the formation of community forest associations to expedite community participation in forest resource management. 2, the national government and the 47 county governments operationalize tax and fiscal incentives espoused in the sections 53 to 55 of the FCMA to promote forests conservation and management and prevent degradation of tree cover in public, private, and community lands as measures of ensuring sustainability. And 3, all county assemblies to initiate processes of enacting legislation on forestry functions for county governments as per the FCMA. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I'll indulge the chairperson for the delegated legislation committee to table a paper. So I would like the order to be called on papers.
Order number 5, papers.
Chairperson, Committee on Delegated Legislation.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Wednesday, 7th August 2019. A report of the Sessional Committee on Delegated Legislation of the visit to Machakos and Kajiado counties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Senator Wetangula. Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish, pursuant to Standing Order 48.1, seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the requirement by the Minister of Education that grade 3 pupils be subjected to an assessment test before proceeding to the next level. Mr. Speaker, in the statement, the committee should, 1, state the number, level, and type of assessments to learners under the new curriculum of education. 2, state the objectives and scope of the assessment of grade 3 pupils. 3, outline the method to be used in the grading. 4, explain what will happen to pupils who may fail the assessment test vis-a-vis the government's publicly pronounced policy on a 100% transition rate in education. And 5, state the cost of setting, printing, and administering the exam, and whether the cost burden of this assessment will be borne by parents or the government.
Yes, what is it, Senator Yako? Would you like to say something?
Yes.
1 minute, because it is Senator Wetangula's request for statements. It's not yours. But nevertheless.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hope I've not offended you.
No,
rather hard today.
you haven't. I hope I haven't.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well.
I just wanted you to notice that the Speaker's mood can affect the House. So if you are mood...
That is noted, Senator Yako. Yes.
So, Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate my brother for raising this important concern. Mr. Speaker, when the committee responsible for this will be looking at the matter, they should come up with an answer as to how this pronouncement sit with free and compulsory right to education of children. If it is free and compulsory and hurdles are placed, how a children's right going to be balanced with the desire to assess them and perhaps to force them to repeat? Then lastly, Mr. Speaker, it would be important for the committee to also explain to the House where they have picked this kind of practice. Where has it been done? Where has it been implemented? And how has it gone well in those other jurisdictions, maybe if it is beyond Kenya? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's a useful addition, notwithstanding your comments about the mood. Senator Pogisio. Give Senator Pogisio the microphone. Or you can use the dispatch box.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to congratulate Senator Wetangula for asking this very pertinent question. Bringing this pertinent statement. The Speaker, just one addition to this is that the level playground in this system will depend on the distribution of teachers. And if that can be pursued, Mr. Speaker, so we know that every child will be accorded the same attention by the number of teachers provided in the schools. This is a very good test for this committee to make sure that there's fairness in the distribution of teachers. Thank you.
Well done. How brief are you going to be, Senator Maruma? Very well. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to support this statement by Senator Wetangula. We are not very clear about this CBC and how it will be implemented, especially on the summative exams. We don't know when the summative exams will be administered. And number two, we also don't know whether the infrastructure that will be used for lower secondary, whether it would be in primary school or in secondary school. So we'd be happy to hear the response to this very important statement. Number two, and this might be outside this statement, is that I have about 2 statements whose responses I don't have. I don't know if I am supposed to bring the statements again. One is about the recruitment of substantive vice chancellor of Taita Taveta University. I have had it here for more than 3 months.
You can stand that on a point of order. That should be a point of order, but raise it anyway, since you have the mic.
Already, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know how long we'd wait for these responses. The other time the CS Magoha was here, we thought we'd get the answers, but up to now, you follow the chair is nonchalant.
The first one is on the Vice Chancellor of Taita Taveta University.
Yes, and the second one is about the criteria in which promotions are done by TSC.
Promotion at TSC. Chair Education, or yes, Senator Professor Kamar.
Mr. Chairman, let me talk on behalf of the committee because our chair traveled this afternoon. And I assure first the committee, the House, that the committee will be looking at the question from Senator Wetangula very keenly because there are a number of issues that of concern that have come directly or indirectly to the committee, so we'll be able to look at that. Mr. Speaker, I must mention that the question that has been raised by Senator Maruma touches on about 4 questions that have been sent to the ministry that have not come. Some of them came, the answers came, and we perused, we discussed them actually today in our committee. The answers came without a signature of the CS, so they were sent back. It is our hope that we get answers which have been signed so that we go through. Well, our thinking also is that the number of supplementary questions may be extremely important, and it may be very important for us to bring the CS here so that we have the whole house raise their supplementary questions, so that instead of us coming and going back with supplementary questions, we actually have the CS coming here. So it was our hope.
Expedite.
We'll do that.
Yeah, expedite. And since committees will be working even during recess, you need to conclude that matter maybe in the next 2 weeks and get the senator the answers he requires. Very well. Very well, senators. I would like to remind the whips that we just need perhaps one more senator and we are able to go to order number 8. So please work hard. Work harder, one more senator. Meanwhile, I'll allow one more statement from the Senator for Laikipia, who is the chairperson of the Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations, regarding progress of the activities of his committee on one of the issues that also have been of concern to this House. Senator Kinyua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant Standing Order 51-1A, I rise to make a statement relating to matter for which the committee is responsible, namely challenges facing county government of Taita Taveta. Mr. Speaker, the Senate Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations is established under Standing Order.
Senator Cherpregei, approach the chair. Proceed, Senator Kenya, sorry.
218.3 of the Standing Orders of Senate, and is mandated to consider all matters relating to devolution, intergovernmental and intergovernmental relations, governance and management of county government, cities, towns, and urban areas. Mr. Speaker, many counties are facing various challenges, among them budget-making process and health issues. Kitui, Taita Taveta counties have faced challenges in the budget-making process, while Laikipia, Kakamega, and Kirinyaga counties are having health issue challenges. Specifically, Mr. Speaker, I want to inform the House on the budget statements in Taita Taveta. Mr. Speaker, the background of what happened in Taita Taveta. Mr. Speaker, the governor of county government of Taita Taveta requested the people of Taita Taveta to sign a petition to His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta to suspend and dissolve the county government. In the petition, the governor is citing, among others, 1, the county assembly demands for a share of a budget which is more than what is prescribed in law. 2, unilateral increase in allocation of 10% for each department, resulting to a budget deficit. 3, operating the World Development Fund. And 4, payment of pending bills to KEMSA. The petition is a result of impasse between county executive and county assembly in the approval of 2019-2020 budget. Mr. Speaker, the county budget of year 2019-2020 budget was approved by the County Assembly on 26 June 2019 with amendments. The governor did not agree with the amendment done by the Assembly and submitted a memorandum to the County Assembly on 28 June 2019 rejecting the approval of the budget. The governor also submitted a request for approval of vote on account 50% of the submitted draft estimate to cover both the recurrent and development budget in line with section 134.1 of PFM Act 2012. The Assembly rejected the governor's memorandum on 2nd July 2019 and passed the vote to account for 50% of the current budget. The vote on account approved did not include the development budget.
Chairperson.
Mr. Speaker, sir.
We know there is a crisis in Taita Taveta. Given the limitation of time, it will be helpful to tell us what your committee has done, what remains to be done, and what you will do. Rather than giving us the history of who wrote which letter to who, you know, because of limitation of time.
I agree with you.
Just tell us what you've been able to do, if at all you have done anything, what remains and why it remains unresolved, and why, what you recommend that we should do in light of that matter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the advice. I wanted to bring to speed the senators, those who are not aware of what has been happening, but at least I stand advised. What I want to inform the Senate is that we had several meetings with the County Assembly, the Executive, and as well as the Cabinet Secretary, and we held that meeting on 18th July 2019. Mr. Speaker, we did agree that we form a committee of both County Assembly as well as the Executive and as well as from a committee. Mr. Speaker, we have not been in a position to do that because what has been happening, the issues that they have been raising is that the County Assembly, they are keen, they want to talk, but the governor have a firm stand that he's going to proceed with writing the petition. And as yesterday he had said, he has gotten 52,000 signatures to proceed. But Mr. Speaker, the issues that are, for us, the issues that we have picked is that, one, there was delay in approval of county bills, Mr. Speaker, and or what we are saying, considering the Constitution and Article 159, we know that we as a committee, we can continue with the mediation. And so far, so good, Mr. Speaker. And as a committee, what we have managed to do is that we have managed to bring both the county executive as well as the county assembly in talking terms. But every time we try that, again, after we discuss and we think we are moving forward, we get ourselves back to square one. But with the way forward, Mr. Speaker, what we have proposed is this. Our proposal, Mr. Speaker, is that the Office of the County Controller of Budget to consider the issue raised on the budget formulation and invite both parties, County Executive and County Assembly, for a joint meeting, which we have agreed we are doing that tomorrow at 10. We have also said the issue on registration should be escalated to the Senate in order to capacity build the County Assembly on drafting and approval of bills, Mr. Speaker. Another way forward is that the county government technical committee should come up with strategies to address the relationship between the county executive and county assembly, because they are not talking. So we want this intergovernmental technical committee to be involved so that we can engage all of them. Mr. Speaker, because it's a matter that is involving the party, we are also engaging the party leader of ODM, so that because majority of the MCA are from ODM, we are talking with him, and
Order Senator Faki.
We are talking with the party leader so that he can be in among us, so they can be in our midst, so that we can discuss this issue and we have a solution, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I want to...
Thank you very much. What is out of order? Senator Wambua.
Mr. Speaker, I have heard Senator, the chairman for devolution, saying that his committee is approaching the party leader for ODM because majority of the MCRs come from ODM. The Speaker, the last time I checked, the county government of Taita Taveta is formed by a governor who is elected on a Wiper ticket, and I'm wondering whether the party leader for Wiper is also being consulted on this matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, Senator Kenya, you should be sensitive to political parties. What is it, Senator Wetangula? So that you can respond to both. Let's hear what Senator Wetangula is
Mr. Speaker,
concerned
the
with.
party I lead, Ford Kenya, has MCS in Taita Taveta, including but not limited to the Deputy Speaker of the County Assembly. How come the chair of the committee has not found it necessary to talk to the leader of Ford Kenya as well?
Senator Kinyua, how come?
Mr. Speaker, I was Mr. Speaker, I was interrupted by Senator Faki when I was mentioning the names. And I was
So
to say,
who else are you consulting? Which party, other party leaders are you consulting?
Mr. Speaker, I'll consult Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, and the party leader, and the party leader of Ford Kenya.
And
Senator,
any other
and
party
any other party of
which
interest.
is represented in that assembly. So ordered. Let that matter lie there. Actually, it's not a joking matter. It's not a joking matter. If a party has representation in that assembly, I see no reason why they should not be consulted. It is actually spiteful of our democracy. Senators, we need to move on now because of the reasons I had given earlier, but I'll allow just the Senator for Taita Taveta County maybe to say something because this concerns the county he represents. Senator Mwaruma.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity you've given me to contribute on the statement by the chair for devolution. It's true for the last 1 month there's been a stalemate pitting the county executive and the county assembly. The county assembly leadership took to a shuttle diplomacy. They moved to Nairobi, to Elgeyo Marakwet, and they moved to very many areas. I'm happy because when you're in a crisis, really you try to find many ways of solving the crisis. But I can assure you in this one, the solutions lie within the leadership of Taita Taveta. I wish the county assembly leadership of Taita Taveta approached the leaders, elected leaders from Taita Taveta. It would have been easier and much more easy to solve it. But when they started coming to Nairobi, despising the leadership of the county, that is where they went wrong. So I'm telling you the truth, that on this one, the solutions lie within the local leadership of Taita Taveta. I thank you.
Other senators, we have other visitors in the public gallery. Sena Primary School, Homa Bay County, and Bishop Okinda Achuth Secondary School, Migori County. They are welcome to the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Senator Ochilo Yako, would you want to say something?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to welcome pupils and students from Migori and Homa Bay counties. Mr. Speaker, Migori and Homa Bay counties are very far, and when pupils and students identify Senate as an institution or worthy of visit, it is good for us to acknowledge that gesture. To the students and the delegation from Migori and Homa Bay County, I want to tell you that Senate is the place to be. You who are here will one day make it and will become senators, but the route to being a senator or the route to being a member of parliament or a leader is through education. So I implore you to be studious. I implore you to be diligent. You need to get good results. You need to inculcate discipline among yourselves and excel. Otherwise, welcome to Senate and welcome to Parliament. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Order, senators. I have a communication to make concerning the matter of the division of revenue bill. Honorable Senators, I would like us to proceed to order number 8 after this communication, which is the second reading of the Division of Revenue Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019. And I would like to make the following communication. That as you recall, in accordance with Article 219 of the Constitution and the standing orders of the National Assembly, the National Assembly published a Division of Revenue Bill number 11 of 2019. The bill was passed by the National Assembly on March 26 this year, and it was referred to our House, to the Senate, in accordance with Article 110 of the Constitution. As you may further recall, having considered the bill, the Senate passed it with amendments and referred it to the National Assembly. On 8th May 2019, the National Assembly rejected the Senate amendments, leading to the bill being referred to the Mediation Committee in accordance with Article 113 of the Constitution. Honorable Senators, will also recall that the Mediation Committee failed to agree on the version of the bill that both houses could pass, and the bill therefore stood defeated. This led to a paralysis as Parliament could not proceed to enact the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, which originates from this House, and which would in turn allow the counties to conclude on their budgets. However, as the paralysis was going on, the National Assembly went ahead to irregularly enact the Appropriations Act of 2019 without resolving the issue of division of revenue between the two levels of government. This led to the Council of Governors moving to the Supreme Court to seek redress on the matter. I do not wish to speak further on this matter because of our tradition and our own standing orders about the sub judice principle. Honorable Senators, as you are aware, the mandate of this House in Article 94 and 96 of the Constitution, and in particular Article 96(1), is to represent the counties and to protect the interests of the counties and their governments. For this reason, even as the National Assembly appeared unconcerned about this situation and even proceeded to adjourn for recess without a clear way forward on the division of revenue process, the Senate, pursuant to its mandate under the Constitution, Article 96 and 218, published and passed without amendments the Division of Revenue Bill, Senate Bill number 13 of 2019, on 23rd July 2019, in an attempt to resuscitate the process. And this is important. And we referred this, the Senate referred the bill to the National Assembly for concurrence as provided for under the law. On 25th July 2019, Speaker of the National Assembly conveyed a message from the Speaker of the Senate on the bill and directed that the bill be read a first time in the National Assembly on 30th July 2019. The bill was read a first time as directed and committed to the Committee on Budget and Appropriations of the National Assembly. The bill was subsequently scheduled for second reading on 1st August 2019. The Hansard record of the National Assembly indicates that during the second reading, some members of the National Assembly claimed that it was unconstitutional for a division of revenue bill to originate from the Senate. Thereafter, and on the basis of this, the Speaker of the National Assembly ruled that the division of revenue bill, Senate Bill number 13 of 2019, be withdrawn and the bill was therefore not proceeded with. Honorable Senators, I draw your attention to Article 218 of the Constitution, which states inter alia, at least 2 months before the end of the financial year, there shall be introduced in Parliament, and the word there is Parliament, not National Assembly, not Senate, a division of revenue bill which shall divide revenue raised by the national government among the national and county levels of government in accordance with the Constitution. The Constitution expressly states that the division of revenue bill shall be introduced in Parliament, which means that a division of revenue bill may be introduced and can originate in either the National Assembly or the Senate. Honorable Senators will recall that in 2013, when the National Assembly questioned the role of the Senate in the process of the division of revenue, the Supreme Court, in its advisory opinion, clearly affirmed the role of the Senate in the division of revenue process. There is therefore no doubt in my mind, from the reading of the Constitution as buttressed by the advisory opinion of the Supreme Court, that the Senate has a critical role to play in originating, considering, and passing of the division of revenue bill. Honorable Senators, indeed, this Senate, by this mandate, has previously introduced and passed the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 14 of 2018, on 13 July 2018, which was referred to the National Assembly for concurrence. The National Assembly considered and passed the said bill on 30th August 2018, and the President assented to it on 5th October 2018. It is therefore baffling, to say the least, that the same National Assembly can argue that the Senate cannot originate a division of revenue bill. And therein lies the challenge of argument without facts, or argument based on little or no knowledge. Honorable Senators, as you have observed, Order number 8 lists the Division of Revenue Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, for second reading. The bill was passed by the National Assembly on 25th July 2019. On 31st July 2019, the Senate received a message from the National Assembly on the passage of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly number 59 of 2019, which I have referred to, and its referral to the Senate for concurrence. The Speaker of the Senate directed that the bill be read a first time the following day, just to show how committed this House is to what matters and what is right. The National Assembly bill was indeed read a first time on Thursday, 1st August 2019, and referred to the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget in compliance with the Constitution and the standing orders. The committee undertook public participation on Tuesday, 6th August 2019. Honorable Senators, we are at a critical constitutional moment that calls this House to rise above, as it has always done, and provide a clear and concise way forward on the division of revenue process. While the National Assembly may have, without any constitutional or legal justification, withdrawn the Senate bill, the Senate must nevertheless remain true to its calling under Article 3 of the Constitution to respect, uphold, and defend the Constitution of our country. I therefore implore this House to rise above the external aberration and politics of brinkmanship that may be displayed by other quarters and proceed with the usual focus to discharge our mandate. Honorable Senators, it is for this reason that the leadership of the Senate, recognizing the importance of the division of revenue process to the operations of both the national and county levels of government, resolved to prioritize the consideration of this bill from the National Assembly as evidenced in today's order paper. Honorable Senators, I want to conclude by saying what we are about to do is a great, or rather, is to affirm our position as the House of men and women of dignity, and we would not want to be drawn into juvenile antics about nothing. We know we passed a legislation in this House, and our sister chamber in the National Assembly, some of the people there, whom I cannot discuss for obvious reasons, said very, very childish and immature things about this House and about the process. And I told myself this is a test, and this is an act of provocation to see how committed we are to the cause and to the challenge and job that we have been given by the people of Kenya. I am pleading with you, colleagues. I am pleading with you. Whereas you may want to express yourself with what our counterparts did and the acts of absurdity that have been committed against our process, I want to plead with you, colleagues. The law and our standing orders are very clear on what should happen when one House of Parliament receives a message from another House. And therefore, we have our pending issue of how our message was treated. My plea is that we should not fall into the trap of saying, because somebody behaved childishly, I will also behave childishly. I am imploring you that we treat this matter with the people of Kenya in mind. Ignore what has happened. Those are things we can express ourselves and deal with them in another forum. We have a message before us. The country is in a paralysis for over 2 months. Some county governments, if not all, are almost grinding to a halt. Strikes have been announced by workers who have not been paid. The Senate should not be seen anywhere near anything that contributes to this unending squabble. So it is my plea, we are able to consider this, return the message from where it came from. As we go on recess, nobody should blame this House for playing hide and seek with bills and trying to look big and superior. And therefore, colleagues, I thought I should make that communication so that, not really to gag you, in fact, on the contrary, I myself have already said a few things, so I will not be surprised if you have some things to say, just to express your displeasure, because again, you need to rebuke a childish and juvenile behavior by people who have been entrusted with a very serious duty on behalf of the people of Kenya. So with those many remarks, I want to plead that we go to order number 8, and I don't know whether at this stage I can see some points of order. Should they come here or during the debate on the first things first? Very well. Thank you very much. Thank you. What is it, Senator Wetangula? We'll try and be brief, because again, we don't want to lose the quorum.
Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, please don't leave the chamber.
Mr. Speaker, I can see from your very diplomatic message that you are trying to appease the ignoramus. What we saw, Mr. Speaker, and heard, V.I. Lenin, one of my heroes in life, would have described it as infantile disorder. Mr. Speaker, I listened to the debate from the lower house, and a lot of unsavory things were said about this House and the chair. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, who has the distinction of having been my classmate, departed from the norm and conducted himself in a very absurd manner. Having received the message from this House, Mr. Speaker, and the record must be set straight, lest in future we shall be asked, you were there, what did you say? Having received the message from this House, Mr. Speaker, and correctly directing that the message and the bill it carried should go to first reading, suddenly, at the second reading, the Speaker becomes wiser after the event. And the chairman of the Budget Committee, in absolute ignorance of the law, the Constitution, and common sense, even attempted to tell the House and the country that what Senate was trying to do was to increase the tax burden to the people of Kenya. A total absurdity and falsehood, Mr. Speaker. Because Senate has not and cannot and will not impose any tax burden on Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, this is the holy book of the law, the Constitution, the grand norm, the fundamental law. In some countries, they call it the basic law. All laws are born out of this document, Mr. Speaker. And this House is established and founded from the foundations of this document. And you have rightly read Article 118, Mr. Speaker. 28, is it 28? 218. That DORA originates from Parliament. It doesn't say it originates from the National Assembly. And this House originated DORA. So for the Speaker of the National Assembly to say that the DORA that was debated in this House and passed and lawfully forwarded to his House was incurably defective, unconstitutional and unlawful is, to say the least, Mr. Speaker, cheeky, mischievous, and frivolous. Because, Mr. Speaker, this House only acts within the law. And the Committee of Finance, chaired by the distinguished Senator for Mandera, Mr. Speaker, has senior lawyers like yours truly here in this country. We can't let him go astray or act in ignorance of the law. Senator Kabaka here is a member of the committee, a distinguished lawyer, Mr. Speaker. And that, notwithstanding, our committee never sits without a lawyer in attendance from the legal department, just in case we as seniors may volunteer self-serving opinions, Mr. Speaker, which is human. So, Mr. Speaker, my thinking was that as a matter of quid pro quo, the desire to move this bill is premature. As a matter of quid pro quo, Mr. Speaker, we have a DORA from this House in the National Assembly. And the treatment it gets begets the treatment theirs begets in this House. That is called fairness, Mr. Speaker. It is very important to acknowledge that we are senior, that we are maturer, that we are a house of reason. And reason, Mr. Speaker, does not mean that when you are stepped on, belittled, besmirched, and abused, you simply say thank you and walk away. Mr. Speaker, that is not an act of fairness. And I want to urge you, Mr. Speaker, that before this bill is ever going to be moved in this House, and we don't want as a House also to wash too much linen, never mind whether it's dirty or clean, in public. A Kamkunji was desirable and necessary for members to speak to this issue, Mr. Speaker, and make it very clear to our colleagues in the National Assembly that the constitution writers, which again included me and you, were not foolish to create two chambers of parliament, that they coexist, they balance each other. That's why we have to send messages to them. And Mr. Speaker, I even had one member of the National Assembly ignorantly saying that DORA is a money bill. Mr. Speaker, DORA is not a money bill, and is very clearly defined in the Constitution as such. DORA does not levy taxes. DORA does not raise revenue. DORA simply divides revenue already collected, and DORA, Mr. Speaker, moves from an advisory from the Commission for Revenue Allocation. In fact, Mr. Speaker, you didn't read 218 wide enough. Mr. Speaker, 218 2C even says that when the House of Parliament deviates from the advice of the Commission of Revenue Allocation, and if that diversion or deviation is significant, then they must give a detailed summary of the deviation. You don't just start shouting obscenities against a House of Parliament simply because you don't agree with it. And Mr. Speaker, there is a notion going out there that we must make clear to this country, that the national government has no money to give to county governments. Revenue is collected nationally from every Kenyan, put at the center, then the Commission for Revenue Allocation divides this revenue between the two levels of government. The national government obviously gets the lion's share. We leave that to another day. And the counties get their share of the revenue. So where is this notion that the national government is giving money to the counties? They have no money to give to anybody. It's a revenue collected from you and me and the people we represent. And once it's divided, then now it's incumbent upon the two houses, this house included, to approve the allocation. Then you go to appropriation. Mr. Speaker, I'm coming to an end.
Yeah, so that a few
Yes.
others can also, I can see
Mr.
so many
Speak-
points of order.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, you have also rightly said that if there is anybody in this, any institution in this country that is disrespectful and looks at the Constitution with disdain and disrespect and arrogance, is the National Assembly. How on earth would the National Assembly pass the appropriations bill without DORA? If they are as studious as they say, and they are respecting this document called the Constitution. In fact, the incurably defective legislation passed in the House of Parliament today is the appropriations bill passed by the National Assembly. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge this House that we must stand and speak with one voice. Our integrity, our dignity, and the very existence of this House is under attack. And the attack on this House is an attack on devolution. People voted for this Constitution because of devolution, Mr. Speaker. I beg to submit.
Thank you. Colleagues, I can see so many requests, and I can understand. I can also understand the very strong comments made by Senator Wetangula. But allow me to make the following little comments. One is we are not debating DORA, and there is no motion before us. So whoever, maybe I'll give a chance, must have stood on a point of order, subject to my, or rather following my communication. You know, once a speaker makes a ruling, you can have an intervention either to comment or to say something about that ruling. So we don't have a debate, we don't have a motion. So then that means you can actually say it in a minute or two. You don't have to take 10 minutes. The second comments I want to make, perfectly in order, Senator Wetangula, DORA is It's a legislation. I'm saying this for the record because the directions and communication of the chair is part of the lawmaking process of this, of our legislative jurisprudence. DORA is a legislation sui generis. What that means is that it's a special kind of legislation that is just DORA. It's in a class of its own. It's about taking some money in the national government and the others in the county government, so it cannot be a money bill. It's a legislation sui generis, and I think that should educate some of the people I heard making loud comments about nothing. And these are people who have not led anything. They have not been in charge of, before they were voted to parliament, they have not been in charge of anything in this world. Now, then seniority comes with responsibility. To those whom much has been given, much is expected of them. So my plea still continues, nevertheless. Let's hear Senator for Nairobi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's difficult to talk in 1 minute and you've given a communication of 15 minutes, but we will try. I think the question before us, Mr. Speaker, is a very simple question. Mr. Speaker, whether we are going to debate DORA that has come from National Assembly or not, whether we're going to vote or not. Mr. Speaker, today, even if my brother Ledama calls me a goat, it does not make me a goat, because I know who I am. If the National Assembly tells us that we cannot do one or two things, it does not depend what they say. We do not look for affirmation in the National Assembly. We find affirmation as a Senate in the Constitution. And I think it is clear. In fact, I'm very happy that you have said that indeed there is even precedent of them receiving DORA that was initiated in this House and passing it and taking it to the President for assent. But Mr. Speaker, where we are today, and I'm really persuaded by your argument, because initially I was going to side with Senator Wetangula, that if they have not discussed ours, we do not discuss theirs. But an eye for an eye, we all lose our sight. We have serious questions that are before the Constitutional Court. There are questions before the Supreme Court that they will deal with. But you cannot get even when you're trying to get, you cannot get ahead when you're trying to get even. Mr. Speaker, where we are today, this country is looking for sobriety and wisdom. And I think, in all fairness, at this point, because it is just the second reading of this bill, we can move it on to the third reading, and we can still affirm our position in the Senate on the amount of 327 billion, which we said was just what we gave them, whatever amount we agree on. Because our amounts did not just come, we didn't pull out numbers from the air, but those issues of co-inflation, and I sat in that mediation committee. So, Mr. Speaker, at this time, let us be the bigger person as a Senate. Let us be the bigger house. Let us not join the juvenile antics of the National Assembly, who are trying to prove a point, and they do not affirm us, they do not define us. Mr. Speaker, I persuade you to allow us to move quickly to vote and move on to the committee stage and agree on 335 billion and stand our ground. The chairman was proposing to amend to 327. Let him persuade us that it was 314 last time, plus co-inflation of 4%, and let us pass it. Mr. Speaker, I raise my case.
Thank you. I'll allow a few more, but not now. Let's read the order first, because it's, instead of muting debate, those comments can come as part of the second reading. We take a few more minutes and move to committee of the whole. Next order.
Order number 8, the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, second reading.
Chairperson, Finance and Budget Committee. Senator Engineer Mahmood.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill, Division of Revenue Bill number 2019, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019 be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, sir, the bill before us was submitted to this House last week. In fact, we realized that the National Assembly when they published the bill, they published the figure of 316.5. And you recall also that we did our bill last time, and the bill was submitted to the National Assembly with a figure of 335. Mr. Speaker, sir, it was actually my hope and our hope as a committee that the National Assembly will at least consider the bill that was before them, and even if there are amendments, deal with that and send it back to us. Mr. Speaker, sir, the bill, as you rightly said, was there read for a second time, and referred to the Committee of Budget and Appropriation, and thereafter it was actually tabled for debate in the National Assembly. Just after moving by the chair of Budget and Appropriation Committee, there were interjections. Some very, very mediocre arguments were brought forward. And in fact, a paper which was very detailed was read out by the majority leader, apparently having been written maybe in some quotas for him. I listened to that statement, and it was actually very pathetic because it was raising non-issues. So, Speaker, sir, let me say this. The reference to one house of parliament baking a cake, there's a lot of reference to a cake, the way a cake is made, where it comes from, the ingredients, all these things were talked about. And no house has the authority to bake cakes here. In fact, the cake is baked by Kenyans, of which we are all members, and we know how tax revenues in this country are raised, and nobody should actually arrogate to himself or herself that that actually is their mandate. So, Speaker, sir, the Constitution, the people of Kenya gives us to the Constitution 2010, and that Constitution has a bicameral house. A lot of dwelling was made on Article 95, 95.4 on the role of the National Assembly. In fact, they read that Article 94.5a, that the Assembly determines the allocation of revenue, national revenue between the levels of government, as provided by, in Part 4 of the Chapter 12. So, Speaker, sir, Article 96 of the Constitution also says the Senate represents the counties and serves to protect the interests of the counties and the governments. You cannot protect the interests of government and counties without taking part in the revenue sharing process. So the National Assembly should not be telling us that it is their sole mandate to originate a bill that actually or determines. In fact, the argument they were making was such that they can determine what goes between the two levels of government and just give us to deal with Kara and nothing else. That is a fallacy. That cannot work. So, Speaker, sir, as you already mentioned, Article 218 of the Constitution provides that the bill can be introduced in Parliament, and Parliament is two houses. Article 110 tells us what are the bills that concern counties. So, Speaker, sir, Article 114, which they are very, very happy to quote every time, a money bill, exempt 218, any bill under 218 from that provision. So, Speaker, sir, the issue of revenue bill is the beginning of a budget process. I think after you have the budget policy statement, it is the first budget bill that comes for Parliament. It's only after you divided money between two levels of government that the two levels of government each can start now distributing the funds that they have. You cannot purport to proceed with the budget of national government when Kara has not been when DORA has not been put in place. So, Speaker, sir, we would like our sister house to respect the Constitution. We would like our people who are entrusted with the law, especially those who are also in the Attorney General and the rest, to respect this law so that the head of state is not allowed to sign laws that are actually illegality. So, Speaker, sir, I will not go further on that because it's a matter in court. So, Speaker, sir, the bill before us proposes to allocate 316 billion to the counties. So, Speaker, sir, when you ask the people in the Assembly, they will say, where do you get the money from? So, Speaker, sir, first of all, when you deal with the revenue bill, you look at the revenues that are available, that are going to be raised nationally, and you apportion that between the two levels of government. Thereafter, you can start making the budget for national government. Now they will tell you, already you have done the budget. The budget that they made, actually, for the purpose of the Constitution, is not legal. So, Speaker, sir, we, frankly, had those people read, when they read the bill the first time and they opened for debate, we were actually preparing, in fact, my committee met and actually made the report that we are going to actually now also try to amend and come to 327, which was the figure we reached during the matters of, during the time of mediation. We were acting actually in good faith. Now that they are not in good faith, I propose that we amend, that we go back to the bill the way it was. We go to a bill with 335 billion for the counties. That's the bill we want to should back to them. We also remove the management equipment services from the bill. In fact, we are willing to consider that because we discussed during the time of the mediation. So the figure of 6.2 billion should also be removed from the bill that what we are going to adopt. So, Speaker, sir, this country has been held hostage, not by us, but the National Assembly. National Assembly believes that they belong to this country more than we belong, that they are the parliament, so to put parliament in court, that is supposed to act for Kenyans. They are wrong. So, Speaker, sir, these bills, the division of revenue bill, will not go anywhere without the two houses concurring. Speaker, sir, I urge that house, including their leadership, to come back to their senses and act in the interest of Kenyans. Let's not act on the interest of on our own whims, pretend to be superior, and bring all sorts of absurdities into parliamentary debate. So, Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the bill before us, the National Assembly Bill 59 of 2019, Division of Revenue Bill 2019, be read a second time and amended as follows. The Speaker, sir, I'm amending it on the floor right here. I don't need to go anywhere else because I know that in the schedule, where we have leasing of medical equipment, we remove the figure 6.2 billion. We come to, there is a new conditional grant that was brought.
Order, Senator Mahmoud. So you are moving it in amended form?
Yes.
Okay.
That the management equipment services, the lease equipment service be removed, as we did because we were unable to actually get the contract figures for that contract. We don't know who the contractors are.
Just say what the amendment is about.
The amendment is leasing of medical equipment. That figure be withdrawn. There is the figure for county equitable share be moved to 335.67 billion shillings. That is C, that county equitable share be 335.67 billion shillings. Under the conditional grants, conditional grant, that is from loans and grants, and this is actually a matter which comes from Treasury, and I'm sure that is not controversial. Under Water Towers Protection and Climate Change Mitigation and Adoption Program, that figure be increased by a figure of 385 million shillings to become 880 million shillings. So, Speaker, sir, with those amendments, I beg to move, and we quickly move to the, and we expect this people to pass the bill tomorrow. But what they have done with the bill of National Assembly, that actually they withdrew. As I agree with you, we don't become like them. We become the bigger boys, the upper house, mature people, so that we don't hold the country ransom. With those very amendments, I beg to move.
Thank you, Senator Mahmoud. You cannot move a bill in amended form. What you do during committee stage, that's when you bring the amendments. Okay? Very well. Who is seconding? Who is seconding? Order, Senator Mahmoud. You are not on record.
I beg to move, and ask Senator Wetangula to second.
Very well, Senator Wetangula.
Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding my submissions a few minutes ago, I beg to second this bill and wish to enjoin the chairman of my committee that at committee stage, we shall move an amendment to strike out the figure of 6.2 billion on medical leasing, a subject that is very clear on the minds of every member here, a subject that is shrouded in mystery. This House has been struggling to get the contracts of the medical leasing, Mr. Speaker. Up to date, we have no idea. And the scandalous items of leasing that we saw in this House, Mr. Speaker, including the leasing of disposable syringes, disposable hand gloves, and trays, and all manner of things, Mr. Speaker, was not something that this House should condone. The records are there for colleagues who are not in the last Senate. My brother from Masabit and others, Senator Fatuma, remember what was tabled in this House, and it was a shock to everybody. And if we are really protecting counties, you can't allow your county to lease disposable syringes, hand gloves, trays, and wooden chairs, Mr. Speaker. I also enjoin my chairman and the move of the bill, Mr. Speaker, that at the end of it, we are not just banding around, Mr. Speaker, the figure of 335. We are in conformity with the recommendation of the Commission for Revenue Allocation, whose recommendation guides the sharing of revenue. And Mr. Speaker, Article 218 of the Constitution, 2C, is very clear that when you deviate from the recommendation of CRA, you give reasons. Mr. Speaker, I've looked at the bill from the National Assembly. There are no reasons. They're just playing the man of the box, like we see on the TV. I'll give you this pata potea, sijui nini, Mr. Speaker. We can't do this, Mr. Speaker. We can't play games with Kenyans like that. We set up the Commission for Revenue Allocation, Mr. Speaker, and they told us. They appeared before the whole Senate, and they repeatedly appeared before the Committee of Finance. They say that, in effect, collectible revenue increased substantially from the previous financial year to this financial year. And Mr. Speaker, as we debate this, I want members to also be very clear in their minds that there's no level of government that gives money to another. It is revenue shared between the two levels of government and revenue collected from people we represent in this House. So, Mr. Speaker, I want the Council of Governors to know, and also to speak loudly, that there's no gift of money coming from the national government to them. Neither is there any gift of money coming from the counties to the national government. The money belongs to the people of Kenya and is constitutionally and legally shared between the two levels of government. So, Mr. Speaker, so that we don't belabor the matter, because this matter has been before us so many times, I would want to encourage, Mr. Speaker, that as we debate this, members should not shy away from expressing their disgust and revulsion from the conduct of the lower house in handling this bill. And yet, Mr. Speaker, they go out there and want to be holier than the Senate and say it's the Senate that is dragging this matter. The Senate isn't and hasn't and will not drag any matter. It is in our interest, Mr. Speaker, to see counties working, to see counties developing, and to see people in the counties getting medication and getting good roads and water and so on. Never mind the issues of accountability, Mr. Speaker. We are not dealing with the issues of corruption in the counties. We are dealing with the constitutional principle of sharing of revenue. The institutions of governance are called upon that whenever revenue is shared, they must make sure the revenue is put to good use. That is the Auditor General, ESCC, DCI, this House, the Committee of Park, and all other institutions of governance. It is their duty, Mr. Speaker, to make sure revenue is properly spent. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to end here by seconding the bill and giving the necessary notice, as my colleague who moved did, that we are going to the status quo ante, 335. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Status quo ante. Other senators. I'll need some suggestions from the House in terms of how much time we will. I'm going to propose the question. So I would want some suggestions on how much time we need to spend on second reading so that we go to the committee stage, so that the chair can know how much time they have. Because we don't want numbers again to go down. We will look like we are playing games. We would want to know how much time of debate, because I can see the level of interest is still very high. I'm afraid there is still committee, yeah, and another division after committee. So we need to be realistic, because the other time we passed this bill in less than an hour, all the stages. So we should not be seen as if we are playing some funny games, and we have already spoken to the country what our interest is. And the people are watching and listening. So, shall we say maybe half an hour for second reading? Yes. Then after that there will be committee and then the final division. And please be responsible enough. We don't want to go low on numbers. I now propose the question, which is that the Division of Revenue Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, be now read a second time. Now, to enable as many senators as possible to speak, I will request that perhaps you take 3 minutes, 5, 3. Because if it's 5, only 6 people will speak. Let's do 3. Yeah, just say what has not been said. In any case, we have debated this bill many times, even this year. Let's stick with 3 minutes. I'll start with Senator Professor Kamar.
Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief. I stand to support this bill in the amended form that is being proposed by the committee. And as I support Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the communication that you made earlier, because you have referred to Article 218 correctly, that any house can actually initiate this bill. What the lower house has done is something that, as you have described, extremely juvenile. I thought we finished this in high school. Things that one does that and you do the bing bong. It really was very, very disgusting to see what happened, because you cannot see a bill coming in and then you rush so that you are the ones who are going ahead. So I think it is really very mature of this House, and I think this is how we should display maturity as we going forward. I think it's very important. But the real gist of the matter is the amount of the figure that we have. Mr. Speaker, the figure of 3,035 is not from nowhere. It is something that was calculated. Figures were given to us. We had 2 meetings with CRA, and we managed to be convinced, because some of us were still talking of higher figures. And the reason we are talking of higher figures, and I remember myself raising this, is the fact that Kenya is a signatory of the Maputo Declaration. In the Maputo Declaration, 10% of the budget, not of audited accounts, but the budget, is supposed to be going to agriculture. 15% is supposed to be going to health. Those 2 dockets have been devolved 90%. I think it is time that we come back and actually relook at our budgets in relation to the commitments that we have made internationally, the commitments that we have made continentally, and the commitments that we have made nationally, so that we budget with reasons. We allocate monies with reasons. Mr. Speaker, it was for that reason that we were trying to push.
Order, senators. You see, order, just have your seat, Senator Kamar. The most honorable thing to do is to make a decision, perhaps, a democratic decision, on how to proceed. I'm saying this because I'm seeing a lot of movements. We should not act like we we are playing with the people of Kenya. So my request is that we should not move. Senator Kamal, just conclude. I'm seeing a lot of movements. So let's see how it goes. But we might have just to take a decision. Whichever way it goes, dispose of it just as we have said, and then we go on. So those who are retreating, I hope you'll be back when the bell is rung.
Yeah, yes, in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, as I had said, we need to start changing the way we are budgeting. We need to budget. This is our money. And I agree with Senator Wetangula that there is nobody who has more money than who. And there's nobody who is donating money to the other. This is the money that belongs to Kenyans. And the law provides that we must divide this money between the two levels of government. And as we divide, we must have reasons why we are dividing the way we are doing. We have continued to depend on CRA, and we will continue to depend on them. But we want CRA to start looking at the agreements that we have, the commitments that we have. Because when we talk of this one agreement that is continental, we have countries that are already spending 10% on agriculture and 15% on health in this very continent of Africa. A lot of people are looking at Kenya and wondering because Kenya was ahead of everybody, and we seem to be retreating in the way we are doing our work. Mr. Speaker, I therefore hope that by next year we will have even more funding allocated according to the functions that have been devolved. With those remarks, I support.
Thank you. Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'll be brief. I rise to support the Division of Revenue Bill. And in my support to the Division of Revenue Bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, I am happy that this House, which is a House of Union, a House that unites the entire country together, has actually allowed wisdom to prevail. Mr. Speaker, sir, this fight between the national government, county governments, and the National Assembly is something which is dividing this country. And it is about time that Kenyans know that what we are trying to do is that we're not asking for the money to be sent to governors. We are asking for what is devolved to be sent to the county governments. Mr. Speaker, sir, when I watch the debates on the National Assembly, so often I feel like the members of the National Assembly do not really understand their roles. When I was coming into this House this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, sir, I happened to watch the proceeding where another bill that has been sent from this House was also stepped down. So I'm asking myself, what is it that we are trying to do? And it is important that Kenyans understand that this fight is not that we in this House are trying to condone or rather support corruption. It's just that we are trying to ask ourselves, really, what is the point of having a bicameral system of government, parliament, yet when one House performs its role, the other House is always out there saying that, oh no, this is not your role for you to be able to divide the revenue. The money, Mr. Speaker, sir, is divided by Parliament, and Parliament is made up of two houses. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, as I support this bill, I want to remind Kenyans that as a country, it is important for all of us to understand what it is that we are spending, and so that when we pay our taxes, the services that we get, we cannot complain tomorrow and say that there's no money to send to county government, yet county governments, people who work in the county government are paying taxes and they expect services. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, sir, I support.
Thank you. Senator Njeru Ndwega.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to join my colleagues in supporting this bill as read, and hope that we shall do the necessary amendments when we get to the committee stage. Mr. Speaker, I would like to remind this House and the lower house that the reason why Kenyans gave themselves this constitution was, number one, to create institutions. And when you have a country that does not respect institutions it has created, that country is headed to anarchy. Mr. Speaker, those of us who've been in this parliament for many years, and we sat on the opposition benches and listened to government telling us that we can only get funding in our constituencies when the government is happy with us. We are reverting back to the same. And some of us, Mr. Speaker, will never allow that to happen for as long as we sit in this House. Mr. Speaker, we created institutions. And one of the institutions that the Constitution Kenyans gave themselves to was the CRA, the Commission of Revenue Allocation, knowing very well that if you leave it to government to decide what to do and where to take resources, that it should never be done fairly. Mr. Speaker, today we are discussing revenue allocation, and as Senate, we are not getting figures from the air. These figures were given to us, and we sat with the Commission of Revenue Allocation, and they showed us why they arrived at the figure of 335. Mr. Speaker, this House must stick to that figure because, number one, we respect the Constitution. Number two, we must tell this country that institutions created by the Constitution must be respected and allowed to do their job. Mr. Speaker, when I hear the National Assembly when I listen to that debate, and when you hear what those fellows were saying, I really pity them. They do not know where they are heading, and they do not know what it is they are doing to this country. Mr. Speaker, yes, it is true. Even with the kind of figures that we are talking about here, most of the duties or functions have been devolved. Major duties have been devolved. And I dare say, Mr. Speaker, the success of the Big Four will not happen for as long as you have a National Assembly which behaves the way it does.
Thank you. Senator, what is it, Senator Dulo?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 1041, I beg to move that the mover be now called to reply because of the urgency of this matter, and we seem to be losing the number. I thank you.
Who is order, Senator Uchila Yako. Now, we will go the democratic way. That's what I keep on saying. That is a motion, a procedural motion that has been moved. Has it been supported? So I'll put the question. Okay? That's the democratic way to go. I'll put the question that the mover be called upon to reply. As many of that opinion say aye. As many contrary opinion say nay. The nays have it. Senator Kasanga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will not speak for long. Actually, if it were not for your persuasive communication this afternoon, I had also taken the same position as Senator Wetangula, and I was of the view that we should not even begin to give it the light of day. But this is just to say that in a couple of conversations I've shared with the members of the National Assembly, and there are reasons as to why the conversation on DORA always fails. They say there is no money. They say the governors do not deserve money. And I say to them that it is most unfortunate because the oath we took as members of Parliament before the Almighty God required us to respect, uphold, and defend the Constitution, and to do so conscientiously. Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly has failed Kenyans in its duty because of its ignorance and blatant disregard of the Constitution when it comes to this matter here, which you have clearly stated in your communication. My prayer, Mr. Speaker, is if this communication could get out to Kenyans, because they need to understand where the failure is coming from, why we're in this situation here, right now, Mr. Speaker. I support the bill with its amendments, Mr. Speaker, and I pray that even as Parliament, we are working towards achieving 40% of revenue going to the counties, because that is what is well deserved, Mr. Speaker. So I support with the amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Alake.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I will not take long as well, but I stand to support the bill, the DORA bill, as proposed by the Senate Chair of Senate for the Finance and Budget Committee, for following reasons, Mr. Speaker. And also to say that anybody who is saying that the Senate has no jurisdiction in this matter, as you've already rightly put, is totally ignorant. But let me not go there. I support this amendment to go to 335 billion for the following reasons. Mr. Speaker, I have noticed that the negative impact of the national debt on DORA had been ignored in the first place. So to say that counties are misusing money and therefore, and this is why they should not get more money is while there may be some issues around that, these are two different matters, and we should not, on that basis, bring this discussion of below optimal use of resources into this debate. Therefore, and I know the country has been telling us we don't have money, we should give our salaries and what have you, but what about the negative impact of the burden of 5 or close to 6 trillion shillings that is affecting our ability to provide services in counties and at the national level? Mr. Speaker, another issue again that I support this bill for the reason, this amendment actually, for the reason that as it stands now, as proposed by the National Assembly, the DORA does not deviates from the CRA recommendations, and therefore, without good justification why we should move away from that, this House must stand its ground and ensure that we support this bill. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, this House is not doing this for the sake of it. It's doing this for the people of this country, and therefore, whether or not the point of this bill was never about the upper house or the lower house. It's about the people of this country who need more services, and we must make sure. In fact, the minimalist approach of 15% constitutional requirement should be ignored, and 35 to 45%, in fact, adjudicated. And because the 316 is offending the following constitutional provisions, Article 202, Article 203, and which says that resources must follow functions, and the functions that have been devolved must be provided enough resources, Mr. Speaker. And Article 174F, provides for subsidiarity to ensure services offered according to the proximity. So for me, and for instance, the BPS of 2019 has shown that we need much more to go to the counties, and therefore I support, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Allow maybe 2 more. Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia mswada wa mgao wa fedha kwa mwaka 2019-2020. Mheshimiwa Spika, mswada huu umekuja kwa wakati mwafaka kabisa, kwa sababu tumeona kwamba kwa siku zilizopita kumekuwa na mtafaruku mkubwa katika serikali za kaunti zote nchini Kenya kuhusiana na malipo au malumbukizi ya madeni ambayo yanafuatana na kucheleweshwa kwa pesa hizi. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kwanza kabisa ningependa kusema kwamba ilikuwa ni makosa kwa bunge la kitaifa kutupilia mbali mswada wa Senate, kwa sababu sisi sote ni bunge moja. Ni majina tu mawili ambayo yametolewa, kwamba moja ni la Senate, moja ni la kitaifa, na hivyo basi wanapaswa kufanya kazi ambazo katiba zinawapatia. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni wazi kwamba kifungu cha 218 cha katiba kinasema kwamba mswada wa DORA, mswada wa ugawaji wa pesa za county, unaweza kuwakilishwa katika nyumba yoyote kati ya hizi nyumba mbili. Kwa hivyo ilikuwa ni makosa kwa wenzetu kutupilia mbali mswada wetu. Kwa hivyo hatufai kualani, kwa sababu kualani ni kwamba tunajilani wenyewe kama bunge. Lakini sisi kama bunge ambalo lina hadhi kubwa kwa macho ya wananchi, inapasa tuhakikishe kwamba tunarekebisha yale matatizo ambayo yametokea. Mheshimiwa Spika, vile vile ningependa kuunga mkono mapendekezo ya kuregesha kiwango cha fedha iwe ni bilioni 335, kwa sababu kiwango hichi ni kiwango ambacho kimeletwa na kamati ama commission ya ugawavi wa pesa za serikali, na sisi kama Senate tulikubaliana mapendekezo yao, kwa sababu ile ni kamati ya kisheria na ni kamati ambayo ni ya kiufundi, ambao hatuwezi kubadilisha mapendekezo yao bila ya kutoa hoja ambazo zinastahiki kuonesha kwamba tunaweza kubadilisha fedha zile.
Very well.
Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kuunga mkono
Very well, Senator, just so that a few more people can speak. Senator Kapaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'll be very brief. A lot has been said. I stand also to support this bill, which I'm a member of Finance and Budget Committee. But I need to state that figures which were given by CRA are very clear. They are scientific, and we don't understand the justification upon which the National Assembly moved from 314 billion to 316. The 2 billion, they have no scientific justification with that regard. So to that extent, they faltered. Number two, Mr. Speaker, sir, Article 216, which you cited, subsection 1(4) is very categorical that Parliament, which constitutes National Assembly and the Senate, we are called upon to protect the Constitution and promote democratic governance of the Republic in our endeavor. They have not done that. Actually, they have failed this Republic under Article 3. The other thing is that there are the matters which are pending in court, which you very clearly stated. But one thing is very clear, that it is trite law, that because we have filed our matters in the High Court has no, the High Court has no choice but to follow the previous decisions of they are bound by the decision of the Court of Appeal. The Supreme Court. Of course, as a lawyer, you are aware of the decision of Dodia versus National Greenlace Bank during the time of ICA, where indeed the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court, yes, then, before we went the bitter way of disintegration of East African community, where each country retains a Court of Appeal as the bastion of justice. But now that we have a Supreme Court of Kenya, then indeed with that decision and also following the Supreme Court Act and its rules and regulation, the courts can deviate on its own decision, or its previous decision. So I can say that we just need good judges, which we have, and our case will go through. But before then, I need to submit that, like you said, this is a house of Wazes, where wisdom prevails, and clearly the house of wisdom, and clearly, Mr. Speaker, sir, we stand to be guided, but it is very important that we don't seem to be subservient to the National Assembly. That is very dangerous, setting a very bad precedent. If indeed our decisions, our bills are rejected, or maybe they are stalled at the level of National Assembly, then add me 1 minute. Or second, I finish.
Okay, yeah, please. Yeah, give him the mic to complete the sentence.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. With that regard, I'm saying that this is not a contest of superiority, who is more senior or junior. It's a question of the people of Kenya. More money should devolve, and we support. Issue of whether the money goes to the governors to misappropriate is a different issue, because there are agencies to deal with that, as we shall deal with senators and governors at the counties appropriately. Thank you. I support.
Very well. The 30 minutes are over. Senator Maura.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this bill with amendments. Mr. Speaker, there's a reason why people refer to the National Assembly as the lower house, because if you get into the house, there's a big hall where you must all fit there. Maybe the ground is lower there, and that's the reason, maybe. People are really caught up in this issue of unicameralism, as I've said here before. They have not woken up to the reality of the fact that now we have two houses. And it is the same problem that you are seeing with the issue of the National Treasury. The National Treasury seems to confuse its mandate under the PFM law because of the term national to mean national government. Maybe it should actually be called state treasury. We are talking about 335 billion. We have a scientific formula. 314, 6.9% inflation. We have been magnanimous to say we even do core inflation of 4%. But the National Assembly seems to be confusing this whole exercise as if we are in some butchery where we are tearing apart some carcass. I mean, it's really shameful. And by the way, there is nobody who shares money. There is no donation here. We are not in a harambe where you are saying, I will give you this, take that. If we were to cut down on the various expenses within the ambit of the national executive, we will get money that we require. In fact, the issue of national interest has never been properly canvassed because the national government has confused national interest to mean the functions of the national treasury. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we need more money to counties. This is a statement that we have made a lot. If we had more money, there will be no more people dying with the cancer because the leaders that we've just buried or have gone to rest are only an example of what is happening down there. Everybody here will confess that we receive a lot of requests from people who would want us to assist them when they have cancer. I, for example, deal with so many people with skin cancer because of albinism. There is no treatment. So really, the National Assembly must rise to the occasion. And I want to really congratulate the Senate. This is not a defeat. This is magnanimity. This is showing the way. This is actually saying, I am the bigger brother. I care for my country. We move forward. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Senator Maura. You have actually concluded with where the chair had started from by pleading that however bad it looks, there are some things you do painfully as a sign of leadership. Mover. What is it, Senator Chilayako?
I've been trying to catch your eyes.
This is the first time I've seen an intervention, unless there was a problem with your gadget.
It appears there is a problem. When I tried earlier, I got you during statements, but I've been unable to catch your eyes. I have something to say on this, and I believe it's important.
Yes, what is it?
Mr. Speaker, do you allow me to debate the matter? Because before the mover comes.
Point of order, just say what you want to say. Just say what you want to say, because you rose on a point of order.
Now, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to be given an opportunity to speak. I thought that I would be able to catch your eye. This is a matter that I think...
Okay, I'll give you 3 minutes to say it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this issue is a very important issue, particularly to me. I do not know whether it's important to other senators. But, Mr. Speaker, my little knowledge tells me that if you want to seek freedom, if you want to seek justice, then the one who has been invaded, the one who has been enslaved, must also fight for it. Mr. Speaker, I noticed that the mood around here is for us to behave decently, for us to behave well, and accommodate the National Assembly, because the National Assembly is the smaller brother and should get away with misbehavior. Now, Mr. Speaker, the biggest problem with that is that we are also expected to defend the Constitution. And the first way of defending the Constitution is to ensure that we conduct ourselves constitutionally, and we also hold others to account to also conduct themselves constitutionally. And Mr. Speaker, right now, the issue of DORAB that was taken to the National Assembly, as you had rightly read in your statement, was shelved, and the National Assembly Speaker said that it was constitutional. So by carrying out the debate and in the manner in which we are carrying it, we seem to be acquiescing to the fact that our activities are unconstitutional, and what we are debating here is generally agreeing with what the National Assembly is. If it was for me to agree, Mr. Speaker, I would have proposed that we suspend our recess and allow leadership, including yourself, to have a session with the National Assembly somewhere where it is not recorded, because everything we do here is in public domain.
Give him another 1 minute. Because he was in the middle of a sentence. Conclude, Senator Yako, you've made your point. But
So
just conclude, tie it up.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker was proposing that in your wisdom, the same wisdom that you have used to plead with us, the same wisdom should allow you to discuss with the National Assembly away from where membership are, so that when you bring this matter for debate, we are able to debate freely. There are certain things we would have liked to say that we don't want to say because our children and grandchildren would read them. So you as leadership should take the leadership position and be able to solve or sanitize this matter before it comes to us when we are extremely angry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Curiously, I agree with you, Senator Ayako. Something has to give way. We cannot live like this. Notwithstanding, let's see what we can do now. But I agree with you, even if it means suspending the recess or whatever, the country cannot be put on this kind of situation. It's irresponsible and careless. Very well. Mover.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move.
Thank you, Senators. Now, I would like to recognize we have also visitors. I hope, Senator Kabaka, you're not leaving, because you're proceeding to division right away. We have visitors from the teachers and students of Korinyang Boarding School, Turkana County. They are welcome to the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Very well. We now move to Order, Senators. I now put the question, which is that the Division of Revenue Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, be now read a second time. I direct the division bell be rung for 5 minutes. Will the whips be doing what they should be doing as the bell is ringing? Order, Senator Dulo. Order. Senator for Kitui. Senator for Kitui. Don't go far. I direct that the bell be rung for a further 5 minutes. I think we are almost getting the quorum. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Whips, can you confirm? We are okay? Very well. Order, Senator Abshiro. Order, proceed to where you should be. Colleagues, honorable senators, I want us now to go to division, and I pray that we still stay on. The committee stay should not take more than 10 minutes because, we know the amendment by the chairperson, so there are no serious issues. So the committee stay should not take more than 10 minutes, and then we finish this issue. I now direct that the doors be locked and bars drawn. Yes, Senator Abshiro, are you well? Order. Senators, for those who are outside the chamber, I will now put the question the second time. I put the question, which is the Division of Revenue Bill, number 2, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, be now read a second time. Vote now. Everybody, vote now. Honorable Senators, order. 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 I hope the Deputy Majority Leader, you are not rigging the outcome. Order, 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 senators, give every senator a good opportunity to make a decision. I can vote. Any assisted voters? End of voting. Any assisted voters? Order, order, Senator Umanga. Proceed and do the necessary. You're supposed to vote in silence. Order, senators. These are the results of the division. Abstentions 0, noes 0, ayes 26. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the equitable division of revenue raised internationally between the national and county governments in 2019-2020 financial year and for connected purposes.
Very well. Honorable Senators, we are now proceeding to the last bit. So we will not, we'll just go to committee straight away. The chairman has promised us it will not take even more than 5 minutes. So please don't leave the chamber. And meanwhile, we want to recognize we have other students and teachers from a school in Bomet County. The school is called Changoi Primary School. Senator for Bomet, for a minute. Just 1 minute. Just invite, welcome the students. Give the senator for Bomet the microphone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for giving me this, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also join you in welcoming the pupils from Changoi Primary School from my county. Welcome to this particular Senate and enjoy yourself. We shall meet later. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you. Well done. Very well. I'll apply standing order number 40. Order. Order, senators. You order, Senator for Bomet. You know what a senator does when they want to catch the eye of the speaker. And it's not what you're doing. Neither you nor Senator Omanga. It's not by shouting. You press for an intervention. Order. Are you on a point of order? Senator for Bomet. Senator Omanga, what is it? You seem very agitated. Give Senator Omanga the microphone.
Asante Bwana Spika, ni ile tu nilikuwa nataka kuwajulisha kuwa nilisomea kwenye hiyo shule ya Changoi Primary School na ningependa kuwakaribisha wanafunzi kutoka Bomet na nawaambia yote yawezekana. Hata ukiwa kwa hiyo shule siku moja hata wewe utaweza kuwa senator na unaweza actually kuwa governor ama uweze kuwa hata rais wa Kenya hii. Nataka kuwa encourage. Nataka kuwahimiza kuwa na kuwatia moyo kwamba yote yawezekana. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Thank you. Your agitation was justified. Order, senators, order. Now I'll apply standing order 40, paragraph 2, and reorganize the business for the convenience of the House. We will skip order number 9 for now and go straight to order number 10. Next order.
Order number 10, Committee of the Whole, the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019.
Honorable Senators, you may now open the supplementary order paper that has the amendments. It's already on, so move to the supplementary. Honorable Senators, we are now ready to commence the procedure in the Committee of the Whole. We are going to start with clauses 3 to 4. 3 to 5.
Clauses 3 to 5.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that clauses 3 to 5 be part of the bill. Honorable Senators, I now put the question that clauses 3 to 5 be put to the be part of the bill. Division at the end.
The schedule.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the schedule be part of the bill. Mover.
Chair, I propose that the schedule be amended as per the supplementary order paper circulated.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that the schedule be amended as proposed. Honorable Senators, I put the question that the schedule be amended as proposed. Division at the end.
Clause 2, the title, and clause 1.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that clause 2, the title, and clause 1 be part of the bill. Honorable Senators, I put the question that clause 2, the title, and clause 1 be part of the bill. Division at the end. Now we are ready for divisions. Honorable Senators. Clauses. I would now like to put the question that the schedule be amended as proposed. And I order that the bell be rung for 1 minute. Ready for voting? Oops, where is it going? Senators, vote now. Started. Vote. Vote. We still have what may be mine. That's end of voting time. Can we have members who need assistance to vote? Nairobi, Nakuru. You voted this time? Yeah, that's good. Yes. Yeah, yeah. Okay, senators, we will announce the results at the end. So we'll go to the second one, the clauses without amendments. I now put the question that clauses 3 to 5, the schedule as amended, clause 2, the title, and the clause 1 be part of the bill. Start voting. Okay, let's start voting. Voting is over. Who needs assistance? There's only one person who didn't vote. Would that be the Deputy Speaker?
I think it's only you. Maura voted.
But then it's me.
Yeah. Here.
Honorable members, we'll go to the last division. That's the end of the division. So you go. Honorable Senators, the results of the divisions are as follows. On the schedule with the schedule on amendments, sorry, the clauses with amendments, the ayes 27, the nays 0, abstention 0, the ayes have it. Honorable Senators, on clauses 3 to 5, which did not have amendments, the ayes 27, nays 0, abstention 0, the ayes have it. Okay. Honorable Senators, may I now invite the mover for reporting to the Committee of the Whole.
Honorable Chair, I beg to move that the committee do report to the Senate its consideration of the Division of Revenue Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, and its approval thereof with amendments.
Honorable Senators, I will now put the question, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 59 of 2019, and its approval thereof with amendments. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable Senators, we are going straight to the third reading, so please don't move.
Mr. Speaker.
Order, Senators. Chairperson. Chairperson.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole has considered the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 59 of 2019, and its approval thereof with amendments.
Thank you. Mover.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee on the said report. I thank you.
Who is seconding?
Senator Olakina to second.
I second, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Order, Senators, I'll propose the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Senator Maura, are you?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, just to really congratulate the movers and the whole House for a job well done. I think this is historical because if a child keeps on making the same mistakes, you give them a second and a third chance. By virtue of passing this bill, we've given ourselves a chance to show the lower house of the magnanimity that we have. Indeed, it's a three-streamed school of over 300 people. I'm sure now we can reason together if they take this golden opportunity. I support.
Very well. I'll put the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. As many of that opinion say aye. As many of our contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Mover.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the Division of Revenue number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019 be now read a third time. I thank you.
Secondment.
Olekina to second, Senator.
Senator Olekina.
Mr. Speaker, I second.
Senators, I will propose the question, which is that the Division of Revenue Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 89 of 2019 be now read a third time. Senator Wetangula, you have a comment?
Mr. Speaker, I want to beg you, as our Speaker, that upon conclusion of this, the message should be delivered this afternoon to the lower house.
Is that the opinion of the House? As many of that opinion say aye. Contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. It will be done. Thank you, Senator Wetangula. I will now put the question, which is that the Division of Revenue Bill number 2, National Assembly Bill number 59 of 2019, be now read a third time. Going into division, a bell be rung for a minute. End of, I think now we should get ready to vote. Vote now. End of voting, assisted voters. Senator Manga and company. Senator Ochilo Ayako, you are suspected to be a manual voter. Okay. Order, Senators, I'm now ready to announce the results of the last division. And before I do that, I want to make two quick points. One is I require your consent, your views. We have order number 9, which is the cancer prevention bill, which is just a division, no debate, no nothing. And we are wondering whether after this, we can just vote and then have the people, the senators released in terms of quorum. Or if you think that is something that can wait, I will leave that to you. Can I hear any views, comments? Can we vote on it? Let's have let's have a proposal, because I mean, if you feel we can vote now, fine. If you feel, can I have proposals? Senator Kabaka? It will take 1 minute because there's no debate, there's no nothing, and then, Senator Olekina?
We have 3 of them. We can just vote for them. It's one vote.
Let's have another view. Any other view? Can we vote on the cancer bill now? As many of that opinion say aye. Contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. So we'll vote on it after now. Thank you. The second one is that the request that has been made by Senator Wetangula and approved by acclamation by the House, I just wanted to reaffirm that it will be done. And when the chair rises from this chair, in 5 minutes, that communication will leave the Senate towards the National Assembly. Very well. These are the results of the division. The first one, in terms of abstentions, none. The noes, 0. Ayes, 27. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the equitable division of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments in 2019-2020 financial year and for connecting purposes.
Okay. Next order. You go to order number 9 first.
Order number 9, the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 9 of 2019, second reading.
Thank you. I direct that division bill be run for 1 minute. Very well. It's the end of the ring of the bell. Let's now I think I should put the question first. Order, Senators, I put the question that the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2019, be now read a second time. Get ready to vote, Senators. Honorable Senators, get ready to vote. Start now. You can vote now. Head of voting, any assisted voters to come forward? It appears everyone has voted, almost. Order, Senators. These are the results of the division on that particular item. Abstentions, none. Noes, 0. Ayes, 27. The ayes have it. Very well. Honorable Senators, at this point, I direct that finally the doors be unlocked and the bars withdrawn. At the same time, I want to thank you because of the communication I issued earlier on. I want to thank you, distinguished colleagues, for accommodating the views of the chair and the suggestions. And I want to thank each and every one of you. And give me a second before I release those who might return. So considering we have sat here the entire afternoon, thanks to your patience, I will apply again Standing Order 40, paragraph 2, which allows the Speaker to rearrange business for the convenience of the Senate. And for that reason, we will skip the committees of the whole so that we don't keep you here anymore. And I now defer the orders number 10, number 11, number 12, number 13, number 14, number 15, and I direct that the next order, which is order number 16, be called out. What is it, Senator Wetangula?
Speaker, the order number 16 is a motion by the distinguished Senator of Vihiga, right? Senator Haniri, who is out of the country on official duty. So maybe it should also be deferred like the others, unless I'm sure if he wanted anybody to move it for him, it would have been me.
No, I think you were far this time because
Yes,
because he had written
Yes.
requesting distinguished Senator Sylvia Kasanga to move on his behalf. Yes, so yes, very well. So next order.
Order number 16, motion, creation of support services for members of the disciplined forces and their families.
Senator Sylvia Kasanga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
Yes, proceed, Senator Kasanga.
I beg to move the motion for creation of support services for the disciplined forces and their families, that appreciating the commitment and sacrifice by members of the disciplined forces in protecting our country from both internal and external aggression, aware of the risky and stressful environment that the officers are exposed to daily in the line of duty, combined with the increased terrorism threats at home and abroad, noting that members of the disciplined forces, by extension their families, are exposed to traumatic incidences both at home and abroad that manifests themselves through living in constant fear, dilapidating depression, nightmares, crippling anxiety, and thoughts of suicide, commonly referred to as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, leaving them exposed to the stigma of society and unable to care for themselves and their families the way they could before. Recognizing that there is no structured national comprehensive program for post-traumatic stress counseling, either for active or returning soldiers and their families. Now, therefore, the Senate calls upon the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government, in partnership with Ministry of Defense, to establish counseling and support centers in all premises housing disciplined forces, and provide mandatory counseling to all service personnel and the families of those currently serving and those who have been killed in the line of duty. Madam Speaker, this is a motion that was prepared by Senator Haniri, who is away, and I would like to first start by congratulating him that he has taken this matter at hand. He also brought a petition that was brought forward by True North. True North is an organization that fights for the rights of disciplined forces when it comes to their mental wellness, championed by retired Major Mukiri herself, who has had her own personal challenges after she has served in the disciplined forces. That petition was also brought here in this house by Senator Kaniri. And I really want to commend him for the passion he has drawn to this matter and for bringing it to the Senate and to the attention of Kenyans. Madam Speaker, this same house here passed unanimously the Mental Health Amendment Bill 2018 because we appreciate, as senators, as leaders of this house, we appreciate that mental illness is now practically a national disaster. And although that bill did not canvass matters of disciplined forces, because the Committee of Health felt that that should be handled in a different legislation. It is rightful now that Senator Khaniri is asking for the Ministry of Interior to look into it, and possibly, even at the end of this motion, maybe a legislative framework of dealing with the mental wellness of our disciplined forces becomes crucial and has to be brought to the forefront, Madam Speaker. I think none of us, unless you have served in the line of fire, there is none of us who can speak authoritatively on what our men and women fighting for the peace of this country, or for us to be able to live freely, none of us can really give a testimony of what it is like to be in the line of fire, not knowing that whether you're going to wake up tomorrow or the day after, not knowing whether you're going to see your family, maybe your spouse, husband or wife, your children, or your mother, fathers, and siblings. Only those men who are fighting, those men and women fighting for us, can give a true testament of what it is like. At most and at best, Madam Speaker, is what we see in the movies is what we can begin to relate with, the kind of impact and trauma that they go through when they're in the line of fire. There was once a video that was doing its rounds, unfortunately, showing our men in Somalia being attacked, men and women being attacked by the Al-Shabaab. And I remember seeing that video, and there's not even much you can say. You can't even comment, because it is, I can't even say scary, Madam Speaker. I'm looking even for the words to try and express that even us, we cannot even begin to feel what these men and women feel. And yet we have sent them out there as a government. We have sent them out there to protect our borders. They're the same ones who we call out on when we have terrorism attacks within the country, Madam Speaker. And yet when they're done with their service, we send them home without stopping to think on how are they going to be assimilated back to their families. Madam Speaker, trauma is a very serious thing. And we live in a society where we don't understand the effects of trauma, psychologically and mentally. I am no expert on it, but from the research that I have done when I was working on the bill, trauma is a source of a lot of our societal problems. And yet it is the one thing that can be easily treated and managed, for that matter, Madam Speaker. Some of the effects of living with trauma include gender-based violence, use and abuse of drugs, alcoholism, depression, the disorders that come with post-traumatic stress. It includes addictions, strange addictions, including pornography, sex, and other strange ones that I can't even mention here, Madam Speaker. Insomnia, lack of sleep. Essentially, you can never live a full life on a daily basis. And in effect, that also reduces your life expectancy. So our disciplined forces are faced with such scenarios, Madam Speaker. Now that is the impact that it has on that person. How about the impact it has on his family, the people he's living around with, his spouse, wife or husband, and his children? And the impact of these effects on one person are easily transmitted to the immediate family and also to the larger family. Mental illness has a way of affecting the larger family around, largely because, of course, of the stigma that is around it, Madam Speaker. And when we were debating the mental health bill here, we spoke a lot about fighting stigma, because it's the first way that we're going to deal with mental illnesses. So for our disciplined forces, imagine what the immediate families go through when a member has come home with trauma and dealing with the effects of trauma, where he has received absolutely no support for. It creates a vicious cycle, because then you have children who are affected because they have grown up with a parent who has effects of trauma that then he projects onto the children. then they, the children themselves, have now their own trauma, which is created from having been with a traumatized parent, Madam Speaker. And then it becomes a vicious cycle. And you can see how then broken families now begin to happen, Madam Speaker, in such scenarios. And yet, we are talking about something that can be managed through psychosocial support, through counseling, through medication, where in extreme cases, that it is possible to deal with these things, Madam Speaker. Some of the, Madam Speaker, I want to refer to something from True North that they had shared with us here, with Senator Kaniri, that the psychosocial support should be in the creation of circles of care, which cover mental and physical health rehabilitation, legal representation, financial aid, transition and reintegration support. Madam Speaker, reintegration is so critical because when you've been in the line of fire, the kind of trauma you have, even having a basic conversation with somebody can be easily affected. So when we talk of reintegration, we are talking about the kind of support for them to continue with a normal life, as normal as it can be. Acts of recognition and celebration of living, Madam Speaker, because I think when you've been through the line of fire, I cannot speak authoritatively, but when you have been faced with death, there is no way you can go through life just like somebody who's normal. So there's that which they have to be retaught, to be reintegrated, to appreciate and to celebrate life. Honor and validation of the dead, another very critical aspect that needs to be looked into when it comes to our forces, our disciplined forces. Because imagine the impact that it has when you can see your colleague not being appreciated, your colleague not being celebrated, and yet they lost their lives in the line of fire, Madam Speaker. Imagine what it does to the spirit of the rest of them who are still fighting for Kenyans. An honor and validation of the dead is also a celebration of those who have put their lives on fire. Work and deployment considerations. Again, a lot of this happens once they're released, they have nowhere else to go. So with their effects, they're sitting at home. How about being given something else to do, away from just sitting at home? Then there's family and parenting coaching, again, which is part of the rehabilitation that is required. And these are ideas and thoughts that have been put forward by somebody who has actually lived through this trauma, Madam Speaker. She herself has struggled to get her life back in order, and you can imagine she is able. A lot of the others may not be able, Madam Speaker. So this motion is more than timely, and I know these issues were debated when the petition was brought to the floor of the House. But it cannot be lost that the government definitely needs to do something through the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Interior and Coordination. Something must be done, and it needs to be done urgently, and it needs to be done with posterity in mind, with the sustainability, so that it is there throughout. And some of these programs that are going to be set up, especially when it comes to honoring and validation of the dead, it must be done in a way that can appreciate the lives of Kenyans who have risked their own everything to protect us, so that we can enjoy the peace that we enjoy in this country. So, Madam Speaker, as I move this motion, I want to congratulate again Senator Kaniri for bringing this forward and for being passionate about it. And I want to say that there's no health without mental health, and that does not mean that our disciplined forces are not included, even if it was not in the Mental Health Amendment Bill. There must be also legislation that must come after this that takes care of all our disciplined forces, Madam Speaker. So I beg to move, and I request Senator Dr. Musuruve to second. Thank you.
Senator Musuruve.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to second this motion. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, that Senator Haniri has come up with a motion that is quite noble, and especially as a country. It is a motion that seeks to ensure that we really appreciate the work that the armed forces are doing. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, when we are talking of disciplined forces, from a broad perspective, we'll be talking about the national police, we'll be talking of the prison service, the military, we'll be talking of national intelligence, we'll be talking of witness protection agencies. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, all these people combined do a lot for this nation. And even world over, wherever they are, they do a lot for their country. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, they have quite a number of roles they play in the country they come from. Like, for example, Madam Speaker, instances of xenophobia. In such a situation, you'll find because of xenophobia, sometimes people will be killed recklessly just because of hatred. There are people who really hate to see foreigners in any way. And it is in such situations that these armed forces will come in to ensure that they are saving a life. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, even when you look at our Constitution, Article 26, it is a constitutional right that everyone has, a right to live, to life. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, we cannot really ignore what the armed forces do. We cannot ignore the fact that they really are able to help in preventing crime. They're able to detect crime. And even when we are sleeping soundly in our beds, Madam Speaker, these people are always watching over us. You will find that sometimes they don't even sleep, simply because they want to ensure that they're protecting, Kenyans, they're protecting the people they are mandated to protect. So I want to say, Madam Speaker, we really have to look for a way in which we can actually create services for their appreciation. And even sometimes when there are offenders amongst us, and even when there's need to ensure that law is enforced, sometimes they come in, many times they come in handily. And they come in just what they're told to do. That is what they do. And you can imagine, Madam Speaker, they cannot question. If they're told turn right, they'll not say, I think it's not safe to turn right. They will just turn right. If they're told, leave this town and go to another town, they will go without questioning. And sometimes they're even taken away from a peaceful area to a war-torn area. But they cannot question, simply because of the commitment they've made to themselves and to their nations, that they're going to defend their people regardless what. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, these are people who live selflessly. As in, they've actually surrendered their lives for the purpose of ensuring peace, for the purpose of ensuring they're protecting our borders, for the purpose of ensuring that law and order is enforced. And Madam Speaker, I even want to say on the floor of this House that they eventually lose their civility in terms of thinking. They cannot think like any civil, citizen. As in, when people are thinking of, we want to go for a holiday, we want to go for a birthday, we want to go for a funeral, we want to socialize, they cannot just decide on their own accord that they want to socialize. And actually, Madam Speaker, some of them are even detached from their families, simply because when they're sent somewhere to work, they will work for the time frame when they're supposed to be there. And even some of them even leave the country to ensure, some of them leave their own homes to ensure that they're protecting the borders. And when they're protecting the borders, you'll find, Madam Speaker, most of them may not go with their families. They will go alone. So I want to say, Madam Speaker, even when they go alone, they will not begin thinking like any civil person. So they will miss out on social places. They'll be cut off completely from the society. They'll be cut off completely from their families. And if it is communication, probably, I want to believe maybe it will just be a phone call away. So I want to say, Madam Speaker, that even the armed forces, as they are serving, they have quite a number of challenges. Some of the challenges, like Senator Kasanga has just mentioned, are psychological. You know, they live in fear. They are not sure whether they'll really, brave through wherever they go to. Like, for example, if they're sent, for example, from a peaceful town to a war-torn area, they're not sure whether they'll survive even 3 months. So even mentally, they're psychologically affected. They even have their own personal worries. They worry also about their children. They worry even about their spouses. They worry about their families. And this worry, Madam Speaker, must be addressed wherever they are. If they are far from their families, there should be a center that is going to psychologically help them really address such worries. And sometimes, Madam Speaker, even when it comes to erratic transfers, they have no say. If they all go, they'll just go. So I want to say that even when we are talking of the issue of proximity, these people, when it comes to proximity, they're so distant from their families. They're so detached from their children. Sometimes they see their children when they're fully grown. And even I want to say, Madam Speaker, in as much as you're talking of individual challenges, we also have challenges with their own families. You'll find that even children themselves may not understand that they have an absentee father, that they may not understand that they have an absentee mother. So even children themselves go through tormenting moments, they go through psychological stress that really need to be addressed. So there's need to even factor in the children issue. How can they really manage this? And how can they be made to understand, yes, your father or your mother is away from you because he's on duty, and that the only time you'll see your mother or your father is maybe during Christmas Day, or maybe when they'll be on leave for about 3 weeks in a year, or 4 weeks in a year. So, Madam Speaker, there's a lot of psychological torture that goes in the families of the armed, disciplined forces. In the children of the disciplined forces, and even sometimes, Madam Speaker, some of them come back home only to find that their spouses have left them, their spouses have, even eloped with other people. Sometimes it becomes really a challenge. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, even as you're talking about this, there's also psychological trauma even for the extended families. Like, let me take an example of mothers. When a mother has a child who is working with the armed forces, the mother will appreciate, yes, God has given my child a job. But there's usually that worry in not only a mother, parents. There's usually that worry that, will my child be fine? Will my child come back fine? Will my child brave through? And all that. So there's need for centers to ensure that the significant others of these disciplined forces are given psychological treatment in terms of psychosocial talks, and also not only psychosocial talks. Madam Speaker, you will find that sometimes even financially, they may not really be faring on well. So there's need, even as we talk of psychological services, there's need also for financial services. When you are talking of armed, disciplined forces who are really ensuring that you are protected, there is need to devise a mechanism to ensure that they are financially incentivized, that they are financially compensated. Even when it comes to schools for children, Madam Speaker, I think even the children should just learn completely for free, because when you really look at the risks they go through, and when you look at the obligations they have financially, there is need to give them a reason to risk their lives, Madam Speaker. So I want to say, Madam Speaker, as a country, there is need to ensure that we are moving in with speed to stand with the forces, the armed forces, to stand with their families, to stand with their children, because of what they do for this nation. And Madam Speaker, and I even saw on TV, was it, I think almost a month ago, there is a disciplined officer who, came back with a disability. During his line of duty, he acquired a disability and his face was deformed. Madam Speaker, when he came back home, his only wife unloved wife packed and went. He was so devastated that he has come back home. There's no kind of, psychological talk about coming back to the society, and then all of a sudden he gets a rude shock. That culture shock can be very bad for an individual. That you come back from another country, you've been defending your own country, then when you come back you are deformed, your own wife goes away, then you don't have a family, you don't have a job. They need to ensure that even in the event of a disability, and these people get